5.
Hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Community Safety Committee meeting, which is the last meeting for this year, a year before we start again in after May. So, welcome everybody to the Community Safety meeting. So we'll start with agenda item 1. Which is minutes of the last meeting held on 15th of January. But before I go that, I've got some apologies from Councillor Berg, and Councillor Downs very kindly agreed to sub for Councillor Berg. So item 1, minutes of the last meeting held on 15th of January 2021 seems like long time ago. Are we all okay with the minutes?
Move it, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, any matters arising, please, from the minutes? No? Okay, that's always good. There's no matters arising from the previous meeting. I don't think there's any urgent items, and also admission to the public from the members, if there are any. If not, I'll take silence as they're all happy with it, and there's no admissions to the public. Declaration of interest, item 5. That's to consider any declaration of disclosable pecuniary interest in relation to any item of the business to the agenda. Again, if it's a silence, I'll consider that we just move on. I haven't got any declarations to make. So the first item that needs presentation is arson convictions for the year 2020. That's on page 7, and Scott would be very kindly presenting that to us. Over to you, Scott.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper is for note, and it gives an overview of the arson convictions that have taken place through the year 2020-2021. The paper introduces the West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service Fire Investigation Unit. The Fire Investigation Unit is made up of 4 fixed-term watch commanders, and also supported by 10 additional station managers. West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service operates 2 main levels of fire investigation. Level 1 is undertaken by all our crew and watch commanders, essentially all our first responders. And then level 2 is undertaken by specialist officers who go through quite a deal of training and experience to make sure they can interpret fire scenes. So through 2020, there were 231 Tier 2 fire investigations. This is our higher level investigation, of which 128 were to be concluded as deliberate fires. The paper breaks down into a table which details where the fires have occurred, the type of fire, and what the sentencing and sentence looks like. Going forward, we will be more general with addressing, as long as members approve, and it does demonstrate just how supportive of the police our fire investigation services can be. They are a key part, work very closely with our crime scene investigative colleagues in the police, and it is something we are progressing through ISO accreditation going forward, and we're likely to see a much closer working relationship with the police from October in this year going forward into next year's. So the paper talks through the tables, which show some quite significant sentences ranging from a few months right through to many years for people taking part in arson offences, which does justify the severity that some of these cases do have. The paper then goes into the financial implications, and there are no financial implications arising from this report. We do budget for our fire investigation team as part of normal ways of working. So this does also support our prevention initiatives, as learning from fire investigation about emerging threats, emerging trends, types of incidents that are occurring, such as portable heaters, does inform our prevention strategy going forward. And it also informs our response strategy, because when we understand why fires are occurring in a particular area, we can make sure we've got the resource available to be able to manage that risk down. There are no human resource and diversity implications arising from this report, and health, safety and wellbeing implications are quite interesting for this one, in that unfortunately our fire investigation officers do see some quite horrific scenes. They don't go to the run-of-the-mill incidents. Chances are when they are there, somebody has been hurt or severely injured. So we do make sure that they have regular monitoring and counselling to make sure they're able to deal with the kind of situations they do come across. The paper does link into a number of your fire and rescue service priorities around reducing the risk to communities, supporting and developing people to be at their best, and also improving ways of working which improves our effectiveness. So in conclusion, this paper demonstrates to the members of the Community Safety Committee the good work that our fire investigation team do in support of our police colleagues and developing our prevention and response activities. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Scott, for the report. I'm sure there's a lot of hard work that goes into presenting these cases and what have you. So thank you very much for that. If you've got any questions or any queries, I mean, I can see a couple of raised hands already, but please use the raise hand function just in case if you wish to, because I can't see everybody on the screen, but I have seen a few raised hands there. What I'll do is I'll go according to, I'll go whatever I can see on my screen. I've got, first of all, I've got Councillor Renshaw, please.
Hey, oops. Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Scott if there's any preventative measures that we can do, because in Asda and Robin Hood at the moment, where the old railway track used to be, just off Ledwell Lane, there's been a few attempts at burning down the trees there, and I'm just a bit concerned that because there's some residential properties near to where the trees are, if one of them does actually ignite properly, it'll sort of be like the incident that you've recently been dealing with on the West Yorkshire moors. So I just wondered if there were any way that we could address that locally.
We are working. Thank you for your question, Councillor. We are working at this time now with the restrictions on COVID. We are getting crews out and about, and we are looking at where our arsons and our deliberate fires involving the environment are taking place. Crews are doing regular drive arounds. They are going to areas where we do see repeat offences to act as a deterrent. Make sure they're early in case they do spot firefighting. We also link in very, very closely with our community safety partnerships in terms of mitigating antisocial behaviour. So work is ongoing, and I will check with the DC from Leeds regarding that particular spot.
Yeah, is there any collaborative work being done with the police as well regarding that specific area? Because a resident approached me and she'd been looking for a PCSO walking around, but obviously not seen one. I should have asked them about it. And so the next port of call was me, and she just explained what had happened. And because I expressed that this meeting would be taking place today, I would raise it here.
Unfortunately, the DC for Leeds, Toby's not on the meeting at the moment. He has got another meeting, but what we'll do is I'll ask him to get in touch with you as early opportunity to try and discuss that particular area.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for the question and the answer as well given. I see Councillor Herond. Oh, sorry, I've got Councillor Pollard next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of queries on the table that we have in this report. Just the very first incident noted was a slight surprise. There must be something further to this one. This was the arson incident with relation to the tent in Woodhouse Park. It was a charge which was Criminal Damage Act charge without sort of any inference that it was arson with intent to endanger life. So it was just a property offence, but resulted in 31 months imprisonment, which was quite a stiff one. So I suspect there's more to it than meets the eye on that particular item. And the other is just a comment really. It's noted that there are a couple of cases with incidents at the Young Offenders Institution at Wetherby, and it does appear that since incidents there does seem to have reduced significantly in recent times, that the more robust approach taken by the management of the institution to arson offences seems to have been having a good effect, because I note that it is now being dealt with in a really rigorous and serious manner.
Yeah, I'll start with that one first if I can, Councillor. We did a lot of work with the prisons in the Leeds area, and for a number of years we did have an officer seconded into the prisons to try and really drive down that risk. And as you say, there has been a change in approach by the governors and the Crown Prosecution Service in how we manage arson in prisons. At one point, it was quite often used as a way for people to change cells or people to maybe attack back at authority. But now the CPS and the police do use this as a deterrent through charging them. So this can add additional sentencing. It can put extra time in prison for the individuals. And as you say, it's having a good effect for us in terms of incidents at the prison, because, as you can imagine, they are very, very confined spaces. It can be challenging tackling incidents there, so they can have really, really significant effects. So that is, as you say, proved very, very useful. In regards to the tent in Woodhouse Park, I don't know the specifics of that case. I will check up on that, and I'll get back to you by the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pollard. Anything else to add to that?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. Next, we've got Councillor Rick Downs, please, who very kindly subbed as well today.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a few little comments on the table. I noticed there's a few there where it says that the prison sentences or the sentencing is due, but the due date's now passed. I just wondered if you had any update, or when this committee normally gets updated on them. That's point one. Point two, and this is probably a naive question from me, if somebody is found guilty of arson and it has cost the fire authority a significant amount of money to attend and put out that fire, is there any, I can see Councillor Harron's already shaking his head, I just wondered if there was any way that the fire authority can be recompensed for their services from the perpetrator, but clearly it would appear, I don't think there is, but I just wondered, it would seem that if somebody sets the fire and it costs us a fortune to do, they should be responsible for some of it somehow. And then the final point is, looking at these, unless I've missed something, it would appear that there's a 100% success rate for conviction. Is that normal? And if it is, or even if it isn't, it's a really good job well done.
Thank you for your questions, Councillor. You're absolutely right with some of the dates, and this is about when we submit the reports to Fire Authority. There are a number of dates which have been adjourned for various reasons, and a good example of this one is the second one down in the table, the 19th of March, which is now going to June. We do report on this at 6 monthly and annual intervals, so we will be getting back to the Fire Authority with the outcomes of them cases. Regarding can we charge for it, we find it's very difficult for us to get any recompense from individuals regarding what our fire service costs are. We are, however, just intervening in a process regarding restorative justice. So we are looking at opportunities now where firefighters who do attend serious incidents or are involved in criminal activity or even things like attacks on firefighters do have the opportunity to speak to the individuals causing these incidents and making it very clear to the individuals what the consequences of their actions are, and really bringing it home how that impacts them. Because I think what has been found is that some offenders are so remote from what the crime is that it doesn't really have an impact on them. So as part of their rehabilitation, we are entering into that restorative justice system. And then finally, we do have a very, very good rate when it comes to arson. Our arson investigations are very robust and strong, and obviously on the background of our evidence and whatever the police find when they do their investigations, once it goes to the CPS, it does support having our thorough investigation. So when it does go to the CPS, obviously a lot of decisions have already been made regarding convictions. So once it's there, it tends to stand up.
Thank you. Are you any follow up to that, Councillor Downs?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we've got Councillor Angela Tate, please, who's waited very patiently for a turn.
Thank you, Chair. You might have partly answered the question anyway with that one, but I welcome the report, and it's really good to get the, you know, what the prison services have ended up being. You've mentioned you've got 231 fire investigations were carried out, but so 128 were concluded to be deliberate fires, but 22 cases have gone to court. So is this that we just didn't have enough information to be able to secure and go through CPS for the other cases, or are some of these cases sort of still ongoing into future years? And my second question is, you mentioned in your verbal report about working towards an ISO accreditation, and I'd just like a little bit more information of what that is, please.
Yeah, so thank you very much. You're absolutely right. There are still some cases ongoing. So these ones, as I'm sure you're fully aware, you know, the justice system can take time, and COVID has put a lot of this on the back burner. So these are the ones that we have got to in front of the judiciary in the last year. So there will be more coming forward. Sometimes we can identify what the cause of fire is, but identifying whose cause it can be very, very challenging. So what we can say is we're very, very certain that this is not accidental, but we can't tell people who has caused the fire. So we can give police support saying how it started, but we have no power to say who's caused it. So this depends on police resourcing and investigation. Regarding the ISO accreditation, we are working as part of the region with North, South and Humberside to bring a standardised approach to fire investigation. It's being led by the Chief Officer of Humberside. And what this will mean is that our evidence falls very much in line with the police forensic requirements. So in order to continue delivering our service and supporting the police in a lot of their investigations, we need to be able to demonstrate we're conforming to their forensic regulations and how we secure information, how we pass information, how we store stuff. So it's all around that kind of approach, just to make sure that when we do get in court and we do start giving evidence, that it will stand up to challenge.
Thank you,
Scott. Thank you. Any follow-up to that, Councillor Tate?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
So we've got Councillor Herron. Councillor Herron, please.
Thank you. It's about the third from the bottom on the first page, please, which is an incident that happened 3 years ago at the Beckland Centre, which I understand is for people with mental health problems. Perhaps you can't answer this, but is it right that we're still pursuing this 3 years afterwards, and for a lady who may have that sort of problem?
I think this comes down to just what we were talking before, Councillor. We provide evidence of why a fire started. So we can say that this was a deliberate fire. And then when we do pass it on to the CPS and the police, we just leave them to make the decision on whether to pursue or not. And I think this is some of the reason why it's taken a long time to go through, because without knowing the absolute intimate details of the case, I imagine there's lots of assessments going on about capacity and whether or not that person's fit to stand trial.
Okay, we can't ask any more, can we? That's fair.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Herron. Are we all okay with item 6? If there's any other questions, please raise your hand now. If not, we'll move on to item 7. So thanks a lot, Scott, for the presentation and answering the questions. Thank you. Next, we've got agenda item 7, which is a verbal update. It's a fire safety update from Dave Walton himself. Mr. Walton.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I think members may recall from the last meeting, we had hoped to be in a position to present a paper to members fully describing the provisions of the new fire safety bill by now. However, as you may well be aware, because it has received extensive media coverage, that only completed parliamentary process on Wednesday evening. Just to refresh you on the provisions of the bill was introduced to amend the regulatory reform fire safety order from 2005 to make it more clear where responsibility for fire safety issues lies in buildings which contain more than one home. Clearly, it was introduced following the Grenfell Tower fire. The bill itself clarifies that for any building containing 2 or more sets of domestic premises, the fire safety order applies to the building structure and external walls and any common parts, including the front doors of residential areas. It also clarifies that references to external walls in the order include doors or windows in those walls and anything attached to the exterior of those walls, including the balconies. These amendments to the order aim to increase enforcement action in these areas, particularly where remediation of aluminium composite material, ACM cladding, is not taking place. Members may be aware that this has been passed back and forth between committee and reading stages, both in Commons and the Lords for a while now, although ultimately Parliament passed the bill on Wednesday. You may also have seen that the Lords had tabled an amendment, which has been the main reason for that recent ping-pong of the bill. The amendment, which was proposed by the Bishop of St Albans, and I will paraphrase, prevented leaseholders being billed for the costs to replace cladding and fix other fire safety defects until the government comes up with a scheme to cover the costs, preferably be allocating those costs amongst responsible parties, including builders and the like. In essence, the government argued that the bill was not the place for such a provision, and ultimately the amendment was defeated in the Commons on Wednesday night. The bill is now pending royal assent. I've just tried to check this morning whether that's actually happened, but I can't definitively say that it has. And it's our intention that we will provide more information at the next meeting, but when all of the information is available to us. And that's everything I have to update you on at the moment, Chair.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions, comments? Okay, I can't see anything on the screen. If everybody's okay, then I'm happy to move on to agenda item 8, which is the safeguarding activity update. And the activity was undertaken in 2020 when 95 cases generated a cause of concern, basically. 42 cases identified as requiring safeguarding and referred to relevant local authorities, safeguarding teams. 52 identified as vulnerable, requiring additional support from us, and 1 case was identified as not known, in uncategorized on the system or duplicated. The total is a 43% decrease of previous year, probably due to reduction in safe and well visits, obviously due to the pandemic. Majority of those cases identified in 2020 resulted from attendance at incidents or accidental false alarm calls. This report is, if I'm correct, is it by Claire Cabot, or is it Scott who's doing it today?
Hi, Chair. I can talk through the report. Claire is present if we need any detail for it. Thank you.
Okay.
I think you've nicely covered the vast majority of elements for us there. Yeah, so West Yorkshire Fire Service safeguarding policy has been in place since November 2019. And this is a procedure where we can pass soft intelligence, provide opportunities for staff to gain consent and fulfil our duties as a safeguarding reporter. We do provide training to all our staff. So all staff delivering service have an understanding of safeguarding and how to report cause for concern. And then managers who are district prevention managers, our DPMs, and our first call group managers all have an understanding of how to report safeguarding out of hours and when it comes to them, and how to challenge the cause for concern as well. We have an audit process which is managed by our central team regarding how causes for concern are submitted, the information that's delivered regarding consent, and are we meeting our duties in regard of safeguarding. As you correctly say, Chair, we did see a reduction of safeguarding reporting and cause for concerns through the last year, and this is because our crews haven't been out and about as much as we'd like. That said, we have still reported lots and lots of issues. Fortunately, we don't see a lot of neglect or abuse, but what we do tend to see is more vulnerability, and this comes down to some degree about why we do see some disparity across the districts. Some crews will report lots and lots because they feel it just doesn't sit right with them. So they want to put a cause for concern in just to register that conversation with their district prevention managers. And that's quite obvious in our report. And there's also some differences about what local authorities will accept as safeguarding and some won't. There is a little bit of difference there, but on the whole, we work very, very well with our local safeguarding boards. And there's also a little bit around how our district prevention managers link in with our local authority safeguarding boards as well, in that obviously our longer serving district prevention managers have really well established relationships with the safeguarding teams, and they know exactly what will constitute with the safeguarding for a particular local authority, and we are working to develop that right across the piece. We do train all staff. We just provided refresher training throughout COVID, so when our crews do go back out to start delivering prevention from May onwards, they are up to speed with how to report cause for concern and potential safeguarding issues. And as it stands, our safeguarding policy is just being reviewed to make sure it is fit for purpose and identify opportunities to do it better. When it comes to human resource and diversity implications, all our staff have a good understanding about what vulnerability is and equality and inclusion. And in terms of health, safety and well-being, that is the essence of safeguarding, about maintaining the health, safety and well-being of the community. And again, this is something our staff are keen to do. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Scott. We've got Councillor Renshaw, please, to go.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask Scott if it's May when the Safe and Well visits are starting again, as I know that they're well involved with that and identifying the vulnerable home, because the residents seem to welcome the firefighters more than what they do any other service for some. You must be friendly.
I think we do choose our staff on that degree. We do look for an element of friendliness. You're absolutely right. One of the best things we do as a service is we're well trusted in the community, and we do a lot of good work on the back of that. It's the way we get into vulnerable people. We are linked very closely with the government roadmap to recovery, so we have been delivering community prevention advice for very high and high risk people since December, going into the home. From May the 17th, our fire crews will be going out and delivering prevention advice to our medium priority people. And then from June onwards, we will back to normal ways of working, hopefully, obviously, external variants and variables permitting to completely deliver our prevention as we want to and as we should be doing from then.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, we've got Councillor Pollard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just looking at this report, there was just one issue raised as part of the background, which troubles me slightly. Section 1, para 3, and the fire services safeguarding policy and procedures. The second bullet point there. Additional guidance for staff on gaining consent from the person at risk, how to support or reassure the person at risk about the process, and if appropriate, how to bypass consent. And consent, I think, is the issue here. I mean, we're looking very frequently, I suspect, at cases where the living circumstances are essentially dysfunctional and disorderly, and in the situations where I guess any reasonable person might deem it difficult to obtain sensible, informed consent. It's the sort of area where in areas such as children's social care, this question of consent is an issue which does trouble me, and the threshold for bypassing that consent is a matter of some interest. How does it actually work in practice when a fire prevention officer visits and scratches his or her head and thinks, this is a worry, but what sort of consent do I need to get to take this matter further?
Yeah, I think this goes back somewhat to what I was saying before. Fortunately, we don't see a lot of neglect and abuse. It tends to be more vulnerability, and we are, as a group of people, when we're delivering our services, very adept at speaking to individuals and making it clear this is about support and the help we can put in place. We do have well-established links with other support agencies, and genuinely, when it comes down to vulnerability, something about fuel poverty or cold homes or social isolation, we're genuinely very, very good at getting our point across about what we can do for people. And I think this goes back to what we said before as well, and we are trusted. Just about that look. So the vast majority of times we do trade on consent, which is very, very helpful. What we also have in our midst is a very group firefighters who are very headstrong, very direct approach, and who are used to just doing whatever they feel is right to be able to do things and achieve their objectives. I think this is trained from their operational approach. So although consent is really, really important to us, that they're not, if it's not a dead end for us if that consent isn't given, but we have to make sure that when we are working with safeguarding boards that we've done something about that. So even if consent isn't given, if it's one of our firefighters going out and noticing a safeguarding issue, the first thing we'll do is put the cause of concern in and have a very close discussion with the district prevention manager. The district prevention managers are very good at interpreting that information. It might be we do another visit to try and understand the situation more. And then they're the ones who will have the discussion with their safeguarding partners in the local authorities about what they found and where we feel we need to go with consent. So although we really do want to get consent as much as possible, if the situation is that bad, it's not something that holds us back. There's that greater public good, isn't there?
Yeah. And as long as there's a clear route through the safeguarding and other multi-agency folks to say, yeah, we think on balance, this is one where we've really got to take some action, whether there be consent in quotes or not. Yeah. That's
we are comfortable at working around that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curtin is next. Councillor David Curtin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question, Scott, on table 1. There does seem some inconsistencies across the West Yorkshire area there, and I know that and you've touched on that. There are differences in local authority safeguarding teams, but if you look at the issues in Calderdale there, 24 vulnerable people, and you look at the vulnerable people in the Bradford area, 11, and there was only 1 referral to safeguarding, and yet we're only 4 in Calderdale there. There does seem some inconsistency across the West Yorkshire area. Just wonder if you could make a comment about that.
Yeah, and I think what we need to get, what we need to understand here is the cause of concerns are the way that the crew, if they do see something that sits uncomfortable, this is their way of raising it with their local DPM, their district prevention advisor. And it is just one way, and some of this goes down to the relationship the operational crews have with their district prevention advisor. Some of them will go straight to the district prevention advisor and have a conversation first, depending on their relationship with that advisor. So that may never realise the cause of concern. This is what we found. This is how we'd like to deal with it. What do you think? And that might be handled in that situation. Whereas some, if it happens out on a weekend or that district prevention manager is not available to them, they will automatically have to put in a cause of concern. So there's something about our systems there as well. But what we don't want to do is discourage any firefighter from putting a cause of concern in, or any of our prevention officers. So there is a little bit about the relationship between our DPMs and our operational crews, and there's also, like I said, some of the differences in our districts. The Calderdale Safeguarding Board, for example, will accept things on the clutter scale at a higher level, whereas some of the other local authorities don't deal with that. So we do have a good understanding of thresholds right across our local authorities about what can be reported and what can't, which is why in Wakefield, I know the district prevention manager there is very well integrated with her safeguarding teams. And what we know there is that everything she puts through is going to cross that threshold for being a safeguarding incident. Anything else she manages more locally with crews.
Is it worth looking at that issue then, Scott, in more detail then to make sure we've got some consistency across the district?
Yes, and that's something that is being undertaken now. Claire's on this call at the moment. Claire's just done a review about how we operate safeguarding as a service, so it is ongoing.
Okay, thanks very much, Scott, for that update.
Thank you, Councillor Curtin. Thank you, Scott. We've got Councillor Jenkins next, please. Councillor David Jenkins.
Hi. So going back to 1.3 and about consent. So I think we've mentioned about hoarding in the past, and I don't know whether you meant cluttering was part of that, but I just wondered whether, again, it's worth looking at hoarding as part of the safeguarding policy and its prevalence across the district.
Thank you, Councillor. We do treat hoarding very, very seriously, and we do work very closely with our local authority colleagues to resolve hoarding and provide support that are in it for people that are in that situation. Calderdale, as mentioned, when we talk about the clutter index, they do accept a clutter index of 6 and above as a safeguarding issue. Some other local authorities don't, but that's not to say they won't give us support when we require it. It's just how they deal with that support at a local level. So no one authority is worse than another. It's just they manage it in different ways.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions at all regarding the item 8? Not. So to item
I believe
9.
Councillor Harrand has his hand raised.
Yes, please.
Oh, have they? Sorry.
No. I will be brief. Under training again, please. Do we do our training jointly with the police so that the standards and assumptions are common? And the last sentence on page 15 says the videos is available for frontline staff. Does that mean they've all seen it?
Yeah, so we do ask them to sign off in their competency dashboard to make sure that all staff do see it. And it is put out there as part of that process. So we do know staff have all seen it. It's also part of our safeguarding procedure that all staff have to sign off to say that they've gone through it and read that document and understand it. In terms of training, we do our frontline training internally. Our training for managers, so our middle managers who handle safeguarding, our district prevention managers and our first call group managers, they do train with the police. This is one of the reasons why we weren't able to do it last year, because of the nature of the safeguarding training and some of the discussions and conversations that we need to get to the bottom of. It does lend itself much better to a face-to-face training course. And we have got that ready to go again we want that done before September this year.
Thanks, that's reassuring.
Thank you. I'll check again because on my screen I can only see so many people. Yeah, my apologies, I didn't see Councillor Herron's hand up before. Councillor Herron, is that your hand for the previous question because it's still up, or is it a follow-up question?
I think my hand should have come down by now.
All right. For some reason, it still shows on the screen itself. Okay, we've got, so we'll move on to agenda item 9 now, which again is going to be presented by Scott Donegan, and that's district priorities 2021-2022.
Thank you, Kat.
You got a very colourful appendix and all the activities. Really enjoyed reading them.
Thank you, Councillor, and I apologise to councillors in the first instance. We have been having backwards and forwards with the developers on this document, and the one I will show you is still not correct, and this is because the figures in the final performance charts are just not ready as a service yet. We're still finalising 26 reports, so once they're done, I will send a final hard copy out to all councillors. So the district priorities, I've put this in for members of the Community Safety Committee to approve for public release once I've got the final documents, and I will send them out to you beforehand. So the purpose of this report is to introduce the district plans. In previous years, we've had a set of district priorities, and one of the issues we found is they haven't always linked to the strategic priorities, and there hasn't always been a clear thread between what we want to do in terms of making West Yorkshire safer and how that's actually going to materialise at a service delivery level at district. So we've asked the district commanders to put these plans together in order to provide a very clear and demonstrable translation of making West Yorkshire safer through our strategic priorities, through our people, and through what you're going to see on the ground in terms of delivery. We will report on these on a 6-monthly basis in terms of a discussion paper. So we will tell you how we're progressing against these priorities and how we are managing risk. There will be commentaries alongside that. And in terms of human diversity and resource implications, it demonstrates how we're working towards a more inclusive workforce. It demonstrates how we're trying to develop our people to be at the best, and how we're reducing the risk to the communities of West Yorkshire. These ones pretty much cover how we are going to deliver our service. So, if I may, Chair, I'd just like to bring up the final version, an example for Leeds, and just talk through some little bits, if that's okay with you.
Please.
Thank you. So this is the Leeds District Plan for 21-22. The intention would be to update this on an annual basis with any changes or relevant information based on what happens in the district. On page 3, we have the foreword from the district commander about what their ambition is for the district. Then we have some information about Leeds District, and I do apologise. I know some of the ones that were sent out early didn't have the correct information. I think we've resolved this now, particularly for Calderdale. So what we've got in this page here is a breakdown of the district with the fire engines that are available to the district, including specialist resources, and how many staff we've got working in the district. On page 5, we've got why we're here as a fire and rescue service, and this is a direct take from the Your Fire and Rescue Service document, which is our overarching service plan. And then we're going to page 6, which are our strategic priorities, which were agreed by Fire Authority last year. What is new to this document now is how we will deliver these priorities at a more local level. So what the district commanders have done here is said how they will actually influence the strategic priorities and the objectives they will do to make sure that we are achieving these, because if we achieve them at a district level, we will achieve them at a service level. So there's a breakdown there across all the strategic priorities. And then we go something that we've never really done before about identifying risks specific to the district. So through things such as the National Risk Register, the Community Risk Register, local knowledge, previous incidents, our foreseeable risk, we've come up with the predominant risks within a particular district. That's not to say we won't concentrate on house fires or road traffic collisions. We will do that as part and parcel of what we do as a service in terms of prevention. This is the more predominant risk, the ones that could have really serious and ongoing consequences if we don't manage them correctly. So for Leeds, you can see we're concentrating on high-rise buildings and complex buildings, and how through prevention, protection, response and resilience, the 4 key pillars of fire service deliver out how we will manage that risk down. There are about 10 risks for each of the districts, depending on what we are seeing based on them factors. So you can see for Leeds, we have lots of open water and irresponsible behaviour, people drinking and getting in the river and things like that. We're still seeing dwelling fires and injuries, road traffic collisions, and this goes through how we're going to manage that at a local level, and we will report on this on a 6-monthly basis. This is the section that I will change once we've got the final information, which will be due very, very shortly. Like I say, we've only got 26 outstanding on the back of about 10,000 incidents. And then we talk about how we're going to work with our core values to make sure all our staff are supported and delivering behaviours how we want them to go. And then finally, as part of any kind of way of working, we've got how we will monitor and review to lead to improvement of the service. So through our SAV process, through our operational assurance, through our debriefing process, through work with local partners, we'll make sure that what we say we're doing is correct, staff are professional, and you can guarantee that the service that we're getting is fit for purpose. And that's it, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Brilliant. It's quite reassuring to see, and it's really nice to see the consistency across this in the reports and all that. So I'm really pleased about that. But yeah, it was a good document, really good document to read. And I was talking to my colleagues before. You see, we do thank you for all the hard work that you do in terms of, doing these reports and whatever you. The example I gave was that of a GP. We go to the GP and, they spend a lot of time on doing admin work and so on as well. I mean, you're firefighters, and we're grateful that you spend time, preparing these for us as well. Thank you. So the question we've got first of all is from Councillor Mike Pollard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do actually note that in the participants list, Ben Bush, the Bradford District Commander, I think is still present. Normally, this is something I would raise at sort of a regular councillor briefing with District Commander, but since he's here, and since this is a relevant thing, if I could just raise perhaps just one query on the Bradford District Risk Register regarding residential care homes. And there was just a little bit of something that piqued my interest in terms of response. And the narrative says fire crews will take part in exercises to improve their response at care homes. And I was just wondering in what respect that was getting at.
I don't know if Ben's with us, but I'll take that one because obviously I've had an overview of all these documents. As you're fully aware, every care home is absolutely different. So what we will do is we exercise at care homes, and there are things looking like where our water supplies are for that care home. That can hold us back hugely. Best access and egress. There have been a number of examples nationally where by going through incorrect doors or breaching fire compartmentation, it's caused unnecessary spread. So by improving crews' awareness about accessing into a care home, can we use a fire door that's not going to breach a corridor and the like that, because a lot of these care homes do operate with people stopping in their rooms because of mobility issues until we get there, and it's absolutely fundamental that we maintain that fire protection. So by making sure that crews understand, one, where the water is, secondly, where risk is, and it might be things like, do they have piped oxygen? Do they have stores that could cause particular problems? Are there people that need to be rescued in a more timely fashion? For example, in some care homes, the most vulnerable people are normally on the ground floor. So should they need help to get out, we can get them out more quickly as opposed to more mobile on the second floor. And it's about understanding the care home. And when we do get there, it means it's always in the back of the mind that crews are automatically versed to be able to get in there and be more effective in their response.
Thank you, Scott. Anything to add to that, Ben, since you're here anyway?
Thanks, Councillor, and thanks for that, Scott. That was perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. No, exactly. And just to back that up, it's just important, Councillor Pollard, that crews are confident when they go to care homes. As Scott said, the layout can be complex, and the vulnerable people, in the care home settings. It's really important that the staff as well at the care homes are confident in our procedures and ability. So it is important that we do exercise regularly to make sure that that fire crews know the risks, know the individual care homes, and have got that relationship with the care home staff, and that they are confident turning up to these incidents. So yeah, thank you for that, Scott.
Thank you. You okay with that, Councillor Pollard? Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. Very comprehensive. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yes. Next we've got is Councillor David Curtin, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And first of all, Scott, thanks for the very comprehensive report on this, both to yourself, the District Commander, and the staff in the Calderdale area. You touched on the inconsistencies there in Calderdale. If I can just qualify one or 2 points.
Yes,
and that's the personnel. It's down there as 48. Am I correct in saying that should be 92 now?
Yes, absolutely, Councillor. So what we've got 92 personnel, and how they're distributed is we've got 22 at Illingworth, Halifax, and Rastrick. That's our standard for a 1-pump fire station.
Right.
We've got 13 at Mytherroyd and 13 at Todmorden.
Right. The other one is the tenders, which I've had confirmed, I believe is correct, at 2. I can't imagine we've only got 2 tenders covering the whole of Calderdale.
No, so how this start? I think it's how we terminology some of this stuff. So in terms of actual fire engines that are going to respond to an incident, there are 5 in Calderdale. What we do have in Halifax, for example, is a combined aerial appliance, so it comes across as an aerial and a fire engine. But no, there are 5 across.
So that will be collected as well there, then, yeah.
Yes. So, Councillor, I could just show you. It'll look like this. So that's the more up-to-date version. I'll get that sent out to you immediately.
Ah, right. Okay, that's fine then. Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much for that, then, Scott. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Curtin. Yeah, so we going to look at the chat again. If any more hands up there, if not, yeah. So are we happy to approve the 5 district plans? I couldn't hear you,
Approve
Councillor.
it,
Chair.
and the
Thank you.
figures that have come through. Yeah.
Yeah, happy, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Brilliant. Councillor Pollard, have you got your hand up, or is that? Oh, okay. For some reason, it shows on my screen. The hands are up. Okay. Thank you. So let's move on to agenda item 10, which is to approve the programme for 2021-22 that ensures our fire protection resources are being used in the most effective and efficient manner by determining actual rather than the perceived risk. Yeah, so that's presented by Chris Camp.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes, thanks very much. So this report presents the risk-based inspection programme for fire protection, and we're seeking approval from members today so that we can publish this document, which, as the Chair suggests, sets out our fire protection work activities over the next 12 months. So we're required through the National Framework for Fire and Rescue Services to produce and publish a risk-based inspection programme. And this is meant to detail how we use our fire protection resources to effectively discharge our statutory duties with respect to the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order. The document itself, which is attached as Appendix A, is quite self-explanatory, so I don't intend to talk through the whole document. However, there are a few areas that I thought of note which I felt would be worthwhile bringing to your attention. So currently, whilst there is a requirement for us to have a risk-based inspection programme, there is no national guidance on how or what a risk-based inspection programme is, how they're created, or in fact how they're delivered. And historically, fire and rescue services used to adopt risk-based inspection programmes that had an approach that incorporated a re-inspection of premises, and this was dependent upon the perceived risk that they presented. However, back in 2015, part of the better regulation agenda from the government made it a statutory duty for regulators, for which we are, to only re-inspect premises that had been previously inspected if there was a reason to believe that the premises was no longer compliant. And this was brought about by the Regulators Code. So therefore, at that time, we amended our risk-based inspection programme to take account of that duty, and that still remains within this document now, and that's part of the principles of the risk-based inspection programme. So the risk-based inspection programme sets out our statutory work that we carry out, and they're detailed within there, but it also utilises intelligence to target our resources to the premises which we think create the highest risk in terms of fire protection. The aim of us as a regulator is to ensure that premises comply with fire safety law, and the approach that we have adopted in previous iterations of the risk-based inspection programme and this current version ensures that where there is a failure to comply with fire safety law, we take action and bring about compliance, thus reducing the risk to relevant persons in the event of a fire. I think furthermore that following the government's announcement that fire and rescue services would inspect high-rise residential buildings under the Building Risk Review programme, we've incorporated that piece of work into our risk-based intelligence programme. Clearly, it's a piece of intelligence that we need to be cognizant of, and that national work suggests that they're currently high-risk premises, so we've incorporated that piece of work into our risk-based inspection programme. There's also a lot of scrutiny which has been placed on the fire safety sector and fire and rescue services and the government since Grenfell. And inevitably, what this means is that things like the Regulators Code, the national guidance, there's also a review of what high risk is classed as in terms of fire protection. And there's also a national piece of work looking at trying to get a consistent approach with risk-based inspection programmes. So should there be any published guidance which causes us to review this risk-based inspection programme, then we would be looking to bring any revisions of this document back to this committee for further approval. But I think that kind of gives a quick snapshot of the pre-seas of the risk-based inspection programme. But if any members have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them now.
Brilliant, thank you. We have Councillor Pollard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just one little chunk of this report where eyebrows were raised slightly. Section 2, para 2, Chris. I wasn't quite sure of what it was driving at here. The second sentence. One such requirement is the regulator's code, which places a statutory duty on all regulators to have regard to the burden of inspection placed on building owners. With the Grenfell stuff and everything surrounding that, is the implication there that the burden on building owners is not sufficient, or whether or not it's too much? I suspect that it's going to have to become more of a burden than less of a burden, but it isn't quite clear from that paragraph what we're driving at there.
Yes, certainly, Councillor Pollard. I think if we go back to the time prior to the Regulators Code and when that was introduced, the government was very much on a programme of cutting red tape and trying to encourage businesses to grow. And certainly with the expanding work of the local enterprise partnerships and regulatory growth, there was very much a focus on reducing the burden of legislation on businesses, so that allowed them to grow. And the Regulators Code was developed at that specific time. But obviously, it's still currently a current document that places a statutory requirement on us as a regulator to have regard for the burden of what we impose on businesses. Quite a quick example is when our fire safety inspectors go out and carry out an audit of a premises. In general, and it does depend on the outcome of the audit and what interventions we need to apply later on, and whether we have to carry out a prosecution. But in general, an average audit generally takes about 6 hours. And that includes the writing up of the audit, etc. But it is quite a full and in-depth visit with the building owner. When that's when that inspection results in no further action from us and the building is absolutely compliant, then compliant building owners tend to see that is a burden on them. And that's one of the reasons why nationally we look to develop what we call the short audit, which reduced the amount of time that we could spend in buildings that were compliant and therefore reduce that burden. But you're absolutely correct. In light of Grenfell and the scrutiny that is going on, there is going to be a bit of a shift in terms of certainly fire and rescue services as regulators in terms of what their audits and inspections look like. And audit is a very different terminology to inspection. Audit is about sampling, reviewing documentation, but I think, certainly from the conversations I've had, it will change to very much more intrusive inspections, where our officers will have a lot more autonomy to go into buildings and inspect them thoroughly. And obviously that will change, and there will have to be amendments to such things as the Regulators Code going forward.
Thank you.
Fine, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. Any more? We've got Councillor, let me just quickly see if it's a legacy hand, or because I can still see a hand up for some reason on my screen by Councillor Herron, but it doesn't show on the chat. Is that correct, Councillor Herron? Is that a legacy hand or? Okay, I think it's from before. I beg your pardon.
You'll be pleased to hear I have nothing to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I think with that, we come to the conclusion of today's meeting. I wish everybody best of luck. Oh, we've got a hand up by Chris Camp, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just to confirm that the risk-based inspection programme does get approval from the committee.
Yeah. Here we have the
Yeah,
approval.
approved.
Lovely, thank you. We've got Councillor Renshaw.
Yeah, happy to support, Chair.
Thank you. That's
Thank
brilliant.
Yeah, indeed, endorsed.
Thank you. Excellent. So that's brilliant. Thanks for the quick timely reminder. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending today's meeting, and I wish everybody best of luck. People who are up for elections and all that, best of luck to all of you, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Same to you.